McLaren haven't been as dominant as they were in 1984. Partly that's down to the much better performance by Lotus, Ferrari and increasingly Williams, but also they seem to have had more reliability issues than last year too, especially on the number 1 car. Niki Lauda has only got 3 points on the board so far this year with one 4th placed finish, and has probably already accepted that he won't be adding a 4th title this year. Prost, meanwhile, has won 3 races while nobody else has won more than 1, but still is only 2nd in the championship thanks at least in part to those reliability issues. 1985 was always going to be a rebuilding year for Tyrrell, but Beloff and Brundle have both given a good account of themselves so far, with Stefan's heroic point at a drenched Estoril and Brundle's great showing in Detroit until taken out by a wayward Alio. The recent debut of the Renault turbo engine hasn't led to an instant upswing in performance as the team try to master the new technology, but they'll be hoping that as the season goes on, things will improve and they'll be in a stronger position ready for 1986. After a trying couple of years for a Williams team struggling to make the most of the raw power of the Honda engine, 1985 has looked like a welcome return to form. They don't look like regular winners quite yet, but there's a sense that Rosberg's win in Detroit wasn't only down to his supreme street fighting skills, and Mansell looks both happier and more likely to win here than he ever did in 4 years at Lotus. Pretty poor first half of the season for Bernie's boys, and poor Francois Hainaut never really stood a chance. Even the talented Marc Surer has struggled as effectively the second driver in a one-car team. Piquet has run good qualifying performances out of the car, and things look like they're just starting to improve with the new Pirelli tyres, so the team will be hoping that they can lift themselves out of the doldrums once more. Things look promising for Ram early on, as the team secured the talents of Gustav Brunner and Manfred Winkelhock. Testing times looked good and Alio ran well in Brazil. Unfortunately, Philippe is still a little bit of a liability on track, while the more sensible Manfred just breaks down instead. Since winning the championship in 1978, Lotus had won just one race, Elio de Angelis in Austria in 1982. So far in 1985, they've won 2, and would have won several more if not for the reliability issues that have plagued new recruit Ayrton Senna. The Brazilian has been a breath of fresh air in the team, and has been on pole at half the races so far, setting 3 fastest laps, but only finishing once, although on several occasions he has at least broken down late enough to be classified. De Angelis also seems to have raised his game, but is perhaps better at driving within the limits of the car given his much better finishing record. If 1984 was disappointing for Renault, the new post-Prost world starting with their first winless year since the 70s, then 1985 has been even worse. Tombe started brightly enough with 3rd places in Portugal and San Marino, but both drivers have been honest about the shortcomings of the RE60 chassis, and the new RE60B hasn't made an immediate difference either. The fact that the team is running the same engines as the Lotus is not lost on the bosses back in Paris. Well, after a pretty torrid 1984, Arrows have made progress of a sort. They're now regular midfield runners, usually qualify decently and often finish in the top 10. Unfortunately, with the shining exception of Boutsen's popular and well-deserved, if somewhat fortuitous, 2nd place in Imola, that hasn't translated into points. They're rarely on the TV for doing anything spectacular, but neither are they regularly seen expiring in a cloud of smoke or a shower of parts either. After their headline-grabbing 1984 with Senna at the wheel and almost winning at Monaco, this year has been a real come-down. Starting the year with no tyres can't have helped, but even once they got going they've been pretty incidental to the action so far, with Fabi's 14th place at Paul Ricard their only finish. If Alfa Romeo were worried that Benetton's involvement would lead to the knitwear firm switching allegiances in a search for quick success, maybe they can breathe a little easier on the strength of Tollman's 1985 so far. Farewell spirit, we hardly knew ye. The small, determined team yielded to no one in their determination to get a car on the track, and managed it for far longer than many expected after being dumped by Honda. But in F1 it's money that makes the wheels go round, and they didn't have any. While Kopeck & Co are still making noises about returning to the grid in 1986, it will be very much an uphill struggle for them. If Alfa Romeo can breathe a little easier thanks to Tollman's troubles, the rest of their situation is much more worrying for them. The new car has been an absolute disaster and necessitated a return to last year's chassis, while even the combative Eddie Cheever seems to have just given up on the whole affair. Patresi's rather brainless collision with Piquet in Monaco is about the most TV coverage the Alphas have had all season so far, and how much money Benetton will want to keep pumping in that case must be a worry for them. Like Spirit, the Ozella concern are dedicated and passionate but lacking in cash. Regular midfielders in 1984, the team have slipped back towards the back of the grid as their chassis and engine, both essentially 1983 vintage Alfa Romeos, have lacked development. And much as Piercarlo Ghinzani's long service with the team is no doubt appreciated, they will be hoping a well-funded pay driver can buy in soon. It's not quite a full-blown renaissance just yet, but Ligier have looked much better so far this year than they have for the last couple, culminating in Laffite's popular third place at Silverstone. A little fortuitous maybe, but it did come on the back of a solid drive by De Cesaris and a late charge by Jacques himself. Andrea still has the odd wobble, but he's generally looked the good sort of combative this year and discovered some of the speed he was lacking last year. Enzo Ferrari has never been overly sentimental about drivers, as was evidenced with Arnoux' sudden sacking. But Ferrari and their fans don't seem to have missed him a lot, as Johansson has done really well and would have become a folk hero at Maranello with just a little more fuel in his tank at Imola. Alboreto may have only won one race to Prost's 3, but he's on top of the championship on sheer consistency, and Ferrari are on top of the constructors' standings likewise. The little Italian team have been popular in the paddock, but they still look a little out of their depth in Formula 1. They're learning quickly and making some progress, but Pierluigi Martini is still just a bit too inexperienced to race, test and develop the car. Everyone wishes them well, but they still have yet to finish a race. F1 is ruthless and will quickly spit out a team that doesn't get the results. An interesting comparison with Minardi. Eric Zakowski's team look typically German and efficient, and in Jonathan Palmer they have a driver with a lot more testing experience under his belt. They've only contested 5 races so far and have been pretty clear that this is a development year, ready for a full season in 1986, but they have at least finished once and at Monaco to boot. 3 of their 4 retirements have been through engine failures though, and given that they make their own engines, they can only fix that themselves.